Recording in progress.
I am pleased to report that the state of the city of Hayward is not merely good, but strong and thriving. Right? We've accomplished some incredible things last year. The accomplishments were a result of all of us working together.
Okay, good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Today is March 12th, 2024. Welcome to the Hayward City Council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Today is a special evening. We have a joint council meeting with our partners at the Hayward Area Park and Recreation District. And so I wanted to welcome all of our partners here, Director Rosen, Director Hatcher, Director Hodges, and I believe Director Lamnin is with us online. And of course, the Executive Director, the General Manager, Mr. Wheeler, and of course, Mr. Peterson and their staff. So wanted to welcome everybody. And if you don't mind, Council Member Zermeño, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Whatever it is, very personally. Some of us were born here, raised here,
Pledge allegiance to the flag
the city's
of the United States of America and to the republic for which
Some
it
of us
stands,
went to
one
college here
nation,
and then chose
under
to
God,
invest our lives,
indivisible,
our careers,
with
our
liberty and
education,
justice for
our
all.
families here.
Thank you. And I don't know if I may have forgotten them, but Director Hodges,
For generations.
you're on the hard board too, correct?
We chose to work in Hayward
Welcome.
because we believe in vision.
And of course, we will have much fuller introductions momentarily. But Madam City Clerk, if you can take the roll.
We accomplish goals.
Good evening, Mayor. Councilmember Andrews. Present. Councilmember Vernia Jr.
Present.
Councilmember Goldstein. Present. Councilmember Roach. Present. Councilmember Syrup.
Present.
Councilmember Zermeño. Mayor Salinas.
Present. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, if you can give us a closed session announcement, please.
Briefly, Mayor and Council, at 5:30, the Council convened in closed session to discuss two matters. One was the annual evaluation of the City Clerk,
Things to this city.
and the Council took no reportable action on that. And then the Council discussed anticipated litigation. One matter also took no reportable action. The closed session adjourned
and the overall direction
at 6:50 p.m. Thank you.
Last year, we started
Thank you. Next, I have public comments, and I'd like to see, is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to close public comment, move on to city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and good evening to the Hard Board of Directors. Just a couple of quick announcements from our library, one of which I made last week, but just want to reiterate that the Hayward Public Library is in the process of creating a new strategic plan, and we would love to have as much community participation as possible. We would like to hear from library users as well as those who don't use the library, because it's helpful to know why, so we can make improvements, and hopefully you will join us in using the library. We have a community input survey that will remain open through March 17th. The survey can be completed in English, Spanish, or Chinese. It takes less than 10 minutes to complete, and links can be found on the library's website at hayward-ca.gov/public-library. In addition, the City of Hayward is looking for its next poet laureate. Hayward residents 18 years or older who love poetry are invited to apply to be considered for a 2-year term. The Poet Laureate serves as an ambassador representing the City of Hayward in the local literary arts community and at important local events. This position offers a unique opportunity to inspire, engage, and connect with fellow residents through the power of poetry. Applications are due by the 22nd of March, and applicants must live within the incorporated city limits. Information on how to apply can be found on the library's Facebook page at facebook.com/Hayward Library, all one word. Thank you, Mayor. Those are my comments for the evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to move on to our action items. The first is our consent calendar, items 1 through 4. And
I'll move the item.
Councilmember Andrews moves. Councilmember Andrews moves it. Councilmember Goldstein seconds it. If there are no objections, the minutes will unanimously pass. move on to our first item, which is the special joint work session of the City Council and our Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, also referred to as HARD, with the Board of Directors. And this will start with our work session. But before we move on to the work session, first, I wanted to mention that tonight we are operating under AB 2449, teleconference notifications and considerations. HARD Director Sarah Lamnin requested to participate in the work session virtually via Zoom under the Just Cause provisions of AB 2449, Government Code Section 54953, F2AI, and 54953J2A. And I don't know if I do see Director Sarah Lamnin, and if Sarah Lamnin could announce that she is with us and tell us whether or not there's, I don't know if there's, yeah, just tell us that you're with us.
Training and growing.
I am absolutely with you. I'm in Stanford Hospital, Palo Alto, on a urgent family medical issue, and sorry I cannot join you all in person, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And of course, on behalf of the Hayward City Council, please, our prayers are with you, and we will continue to provide strength for you and your family. Moving on to, thank you. Moving on to item number 1, which is the joint work session with the Hayward City Council and Hayward Area Recreation Park District Board of Directors. We're going to kick this report off by having the general manager, Mr. Wheeler, and our city manager, McAdoo, kick this off.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and HARD board members. I'm not sure whose presentation is up first in the queue over there. Is it mine? Okay. Jim, are you okay if I go first? It'll be quick, I promise. So I want to thank General Manager Wheeler and his staff, along with Assistant City Manager Youngblood and our team at the city for helping collaborate on this joint work session. As you may recall, as part of the master lease we have with HARD to operate the city's park system, they are once a year are to come to the council and provide an annual report and an update. And so as part of this joint work session, that is what we are doing tonight. I just, in addition, wanted to provide, I know the HARD board also likes to hear some city updates and things that are relevant for both of our agencies. So wanted to share some of those and some accomplishments and key partnerships over the past year. So next slide. I think those members who serve on our Hayward Local Agencies Committee have seen some of these points before, but we have been doing a lot on the city side to address homelessness, and these are just a few of the projects that we have been working on that all stem from what you see on that upper right-hand corner, which is our Let's House Hayward Homelessness Strategic Plan. And that really has led us to the development of a number of innovative programs and partnerships. I'm going to talk about some of these on some of the future slides. So just wanted to go to the next slide and talk specifically about some of the collaborations that we've had with our partners at HARD. We do have HARD participation in our city interdepartmental encampment homelessness encampment response meetings. We have formed a working group to address some of the ongoing issues at Weeks Park and some of the safety and security issues with encampments there. We do have ongoing ad hoc communication as particular issues arise. And then again, these joint work sessions between the City Council and the HARD board as you know, we discuss these issues of shared concern. Next slide. I want to specifically highlight our HART response teams. This is the Hayward Evaluation and Response Team. This is the city's response to individuals who are facing mental health crises and or homelessness and or substance abuse challenges, and as an alternative to public safety community response to these incidents. This is a three-team structure based out of our police department, our fire department, and our youth and family services counseling bureau. And these teams are available. We have our mobile evaluation team, which is run out of our police department district command or neighborhood policing unit in partnership with an Alameda County behavioral health clinician. This is for individuals who are in acute mental health crisis. And all of these teams are currently available during the week, mostly through normal business hours. You'll see some run until about 8 p.m. And we are working to look at strategies for how we can make these resources available 24 hours a day. The second team is run out of our fire department, and that is our mobile integrated health unit. It is staffed with Hayward Fire Department community paramedics who have been received specialized training in mental health response and crisis response. And these teams respond to individuals who are maybe facing a medical need or homelessness, substance abuse, or mental health issue that is not an acute crisis. And then lastly, the sort of overarching sort of partnering of these different teams is called our LINK team, and that is run with counselors from our Youth and Family Services Bureau. And this is a team that really does case management for these ongoing individuals, helping connect them to resources. So these resources I just want to highlight are available to our partners at HARD and to other community members. And generally, if you find someone on the street who is experiencing any of these issues, the best way is to call 911, our dispatch center, and they are able to figure out which of these teams may be the best to respond to individuals who are facing these challenges. So I would highly encourage the community and our partners to use this resource. Next, I know HARD always likes to know about our development trends. As you know, we've had a lot of new development going on in the city, and we now have on our website Major Developments Dashboard. You can see the website there. It gives you the ability to click on an interactive map and get project information. And our partnership with HARD here extends into how is parkland, both private open space and public open space, developed as part of new developments. And so we appreciate the collaboration as we review development applications and how we assess park impact fees and how we develop parkland and new development. Next slide. So this is just a brief synopsis of our development permit data. This is data comparing permits applied for versus building permits issued. And we have data from 2023 through October only. And you can see we're on track, not even sort of halfway through the year, to look a great deal more busy than in 2022 in terms of development permits issued. Next slide. And then also, the City Council adopted the City of Hayward's housing element, which I think has a lot of implications for how we develop parkland in the city and the need for park acreage. Every 5 years, the city is required to update its housing element, and that dictates we're basically given an allocation, or it's called the regional housing needs allocation, where the city is required to plan for a certain number of new housing units. And that obviously comes with implications for service, including implications for park services that those new residents may require. Next is a really cool new addition to our, next slide is a new addition to our website, which is our affordable housing dashboard. Obviously, affordable housing, a huge issue for our community, and this is a way for the community to have a sense of where new affordable housing development is occurring and how the city is making progress on that front. Next slide. We have some really great capital projects in the works with our partners. I want to thank everyone who were able to attend the Stack Center Phase 1 groundbreaking a few weeks ago, and we look forward to that first phase of the project kicking off. And as you are probably aware, we have an upcoming work session on the La Vista Park development on March 19th, and obviously still some funding challenges there, and we'll be talking to the City Council about how do we move forward in partnership to try to really create a community amenity there, given the funding challenges and cost escalations that have happened. Next slide. we want to thank HARD's support for our People's Budget projects. In particular, we had park renovations at Palmacia Park, we had the Stack Fest at Weeks Park, and the Sun Gallery Makerspace as particular projects where there was a partnership from the People's Budget with HARD. And then lastly, an unanticipated partnership that we had to undergo a year ago as the rains continued and the hill slid down into a home on Faircliff Street and damaged backyards along that street. HARD staff, our maintenance staff, fire department, sort of coordinated response, and I'm pleased to announce that we actually began the demolition on the home that was destroyed March 11th, so just yesterday, after many months of negotiations with the property owner. So I want to thank the HARD team, your outside counsel, our city attorney's office, and all the teams that have worked on that unanticipated project over the last year. So that is my presentation, and just some highlights from the city's side in terms of partnership with HARD, and I will turn it over to General Manager Wheeler to begin his presentation.
You know, I'm not keeping track, but I believe that was about 7 slides, but but before you, Mr. Wheeler, before you start, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. You know, the partnership between HARD and the city goes back many, many years, as you well know. Your team, I think, over the years have done just a phenomenal job at meeting the needs, not only in neighborhoods, meeting the needs for kids and families, but clearly, and I know you're going to include this in your comments, but clearly, as you plan and develop parks in, renovating and building, sort of, rebuilding and renovating a lot of the parks, you guys have certainly listened, and you have certainly fulfilled, I think, what you have done historically in this city, and which is always built parks that meet the needs of neighborhoods. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And again, thank your team. I know your team has been around a while here and are very attuned to sort of the legacy that HARD has in our city. So thank you.
Council members Emmanuel now. Oh, I'm on already? Oh, you put me on? Reds go. That's interesting. As you can tell, we're obviously not as technology advanced as, but we are happy that our new boardroom, redesigned boardroom, will be open Monday night for our first meeting. Well, thank you, Mayor Salinas, for those kind words. Honorable council members, thanks for having us. President Rosen, Honorable HARD Board, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to briefly introduce Thomas Amalo and Adrienne Lee Bird, who are going to take you through the recreation report. We're thrilled that we're able to come and tell you a little bit of our story about the metrics. We feel like we've made some really significant advances in the last 3 to 5 years out of the pandemic and moving forward. And your recreation and park service provider is probably stronger than we've been in 30 to 40 years in regard to fund balances and community outreach and services available and scholarships. So we're thrilled to be able to share that story with you. We're thrilled to be able to provide your parks and recreation services, improve the parks with bond measures. And so with no further ado, I'm going to let Adrienne and Thomas Amalo get into the actual metrics report for you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Adrienne Lee Bird, Director of Recreation, Arts, and Community Services. We'll be doing a brief year in review, my colleagues and I. I will be talking about a couple of the participation data, the numbers in recreation, and those are the programs in parks, in the facilities, our rentals, and then highlighting 3 areas of focus from my department. So to start off with, we serve over 33,000 registered participants through our classes and programs. That does not include drop-ins, such as folks who drop into public programs at the nature centers or the swimming pools. Over the summer, we serve over 5,600 children through our summer camps. And this year, our registration actually opened on Wednesday, and we're up 31% from last year. So the numbers are doing really well. As some of you may know, we launched our Health Equity Initiative just about 2 years ago. And it's really our aim to ensure that there are accessible health and wellness opportunities throughout the entire district. It's a really great partnership that we have with Tiburcio Vasquez Health Center, as well as Alameda County Public Health Agency. And with that, we offer totally free programming. We have our water safety initiative where we teach adults and youth how to swim and basic water safety skills. Have offered free weeks of camp that serve as childcare services, numerous sports leagues, as well as fitness classes, and then we pop up with our mobile recreation programs, which bring out extreme sports to different parks throughout the district. And we've also been launching a couple new special events throughout the year and have really been focusing on youth and teens. So our upcoming Flower Power Baking event, in conjunction with our youth advisory committee, actually sold out with 55 teens participating this Friday, so that should be really fun. Another area that we have been focusing on in this past year has been accessibility, so access to programming as well as accessibility for those with all abilities. With that, we support over 62 community-based nonprofits and community organizations with over $200,000 in waived rentals for use and access to our various parks and facilities. We've done outreach to ensure that all community members understand the registration process, so we've done computer training programs and access to our computer labs to help them set up an account, because everyone knows it's very hard to get swim lessons. And then we've really expanded our scholarships, so that is separate from our health equity initiative. The scholarships is a 75% discount for our classes. We've removed all barriers for that, so any proof of government assistance you're in, we're not asking for tax returns. And we saw a 261% increase in the amount of money awarded. Of those scholarships, 68% were actually from Hayward residents, so that's a really interesting number. And then on the accessibility front, we really focused on expanding that program. We brought in 2 recreation therapists in the last year, created an adaptive recreation program, as well as an adaptive swimming. And we increased our participation in Access for All by 263%. That's the program that if participants need a program modified or need extra help in a program, we can provide an aid, or a recreation therapist comes in and modifies the activity for them. And we also started our inclusion working group this past year, which consists of stakeholders from the community as well as parents of participants who use our programs, just to make sure we're really responding to the needs of our users and how they access our program and what they would like to see. The last area that I wanted to mention is our focus on the arts. So we also brought on 2 arts-focused staff to really look at arts education. One of our staff members is relaunching the Douglas Morrison Theater. We've had our Lights On series this past summer with our International Dance Festival, as well as launching bedtime theater series for families. And then our DMT Present series with 5 performances with folks such as ODC Dance Company, Mexico Danza, a number of them, and we brought over 900 new users, really diverse audiences into the DMT with this new launch. And with that, we had our Arts Access program, which brought Hayward schools. Actually, we would bus them in to be able to see free performances during the week, just making sure everyone had access to the theater and got to see a performance. As well as launching free arts programming, arts education at Weeks for after school, and then our new summer camp, which has been highly popular, that is actually sold out the first session, and this will be the second summer of that. I think that's all for me.
All right, let me lower this. Good evening. My name is Thomas Amolo. I'm a management analyst. I really work on data analysis, equity, and administrative support. Today I'll be discussing some of our park standards and park usage data. During this presentation, I'm not going to go too deeply into everything. I think this is an opportunity to demonstrate the data that we're collecting and the questions that we can ask, as well as answers that we can get from the data that we have. So to start with the park maintenance standards, these were based on board-adopted standards that were adopted in 2022. We developed the scoring criteria, the app, and began to analyze the work. And so through the process, we did about 190 individual park reviews, and were able to get a good idea of what all the different parks within our community look like. There we go. So here you can see the scores that all of our parks got. Each park got a score ranging from 53 to 100, with the average being about 89%. So this was a good idea of just kind of taking a look at the instrument and seeing how it works. I think through that initial review, we see some places that we can tweak it a little bit and move forward, but you can see the bell-shaped curve. It shows that a majority of those parks are receiving that 80 to 90%. This is a quick overview. I won't go into it, but the city of Hayward had an average score of about 87. You can see the numbers there in terms of what those parks got. I would say that a majority of the parks were free of large debris, which is great. We're going to be looking at adjusting this to fit a little bit more. One thing is almost half of hard parks were free of graffiti. This is important as I go into the next slide. So the parks that performed the lowest in our district, there are about 8 parks that received a score of below 70%. Of those 8, most of those parks received a really low score on graffiti. And that's important because this is a low-hanging fruit for us. Within the park standards, there's about 7 elements to each park. 5 of those elements have a graffiti component. So if graffiti's all throughout the park, it will bring the whole score of the park down. So those are some low-hanging fruit that we can start to think about addressing, because if we start improving those in our parks through community or through partnerships, we'll be able to see this, these numbers change quite drastically. So park insights. Based on this initial review, we are going to change the instrument a little bit to make it a little bit more stringent on some areas, including the graffiti area, some information about the lawns, and as well as kind of taking a look at trash and graffiti and how we look at that. We are now beginning to incorporate our own CAC members to be doing this work. Once they've done it and tried out the instrument, we will then get our community members to take on that task. And so we could have both staff, internal partners, and the community all looking at the parks together and be able to get a really good rounded idea of how our parks look. Next is a really exciting thing. We have been contracted with Placer AI, and Placer AI is a really powerful tool that lets us know where people are going and coming from when they visit our parks. Placer AI uses a software that tracks people's phones. Those are everyone's opts into that, so nobody's tracked like Big Brother or anything like that. But it really sees, based on their algorithm, they're able to tell us how many people are visiting our parks, what time of day they're visiting, and some really critical information. I won't read the slide, but we had about 3.9 million people visit all hard parks throughout the district, which is about a 25% increase from 2018. So really looking at the COVID and post-COVID numbers. And I think it's also interesting. I mean, you'd guess that the high usage of parks are during the summer when the weather is nice, but most of the visitors are within our boundaries. My next analysis here is really to start understanding which parks have a more regional draw and which one are more local, and start thinking about how we move forward with that. This is an interesting slide as well, because it shows us that the people who use our parks closely resembles who lives in our community. So if we look at the entirety of our district and the demographics and the median income and everything, those numbers really closely match who's using our parks. So that lets us know that the parks that we have and the places that are being used totally by the community and not by one specific group or another. Here's a list of our most visited parks and facilities. So that's Hayward Plunge, Eldon Oliver, Kennedy Park, and you can take a look at that. You guys do have this in your presentation. And lastly is really looking at, as I said before, what is the trends pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. You can see a big difference in terms of our park usage. The blue line is post-pandemic 2023, and then 2020, you can see that big depression around March and April and May. And also we can start looking at what does the bond investment or investments we make into our parks and what effects do they have. Most parks that we had an investment of bond dollars saw an increase in park usage. And so some of those are include Tennyson or Hayward Community Garden. We saw about 400% increase in usage after investment. So those are really critical pieces of information for us as we look at our park system, as well as thinking about the investment that we make in partnership moving forward.
Good evening, Mayor, President Rosen, council members, and board of directors. My name is Nicole Espinosa-Roa, and I am the assistant to the general manager and the public information officer. I'm going to share with you this evening a little bit about our public safety department. As we have people in the parks, we also have our ranger department that goes out. And as you look at the slide, we have about 7,000. Each time the ranger interacts with somebody, we record those interactions. So roughly in 2023, we had about 7,505 interactions. And those top interactions are listed below: the park hours violated, pets, smoking, camping and lodging, and alcohol prohibited. Kind of taking a look at the high interaction parks. 62% of all the interactions occurred in Hayward parks, which makes sense with the data because 64% of total visitors were to the Hayward parks. As it breaks down, you can see the park facility, the number of interactions, the number of adjustments that were made, or interactions to change in behavior, and then the number of users at the parks. Some of our park safety top interactions that included were park hour violations, and we can break it down by park for those violations. Pet restraints, we can break that down by park also. Camping and lodging, Weeks Park tends to fall on the larger number, and that explains the group that we're working with the city on. And then the alcohol prohibited without permit. So it kind of breaks down. Those are the top interactions that we have and things that we see happen in the parks. And so that concludes our presentation for you this evening, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we ask questions, I want to open up to public comment. Our first public commenter is Carlos Archuleta.
Mic check. I come today as a parent. I'm not really too happy with Hard, considering that a league has got to pay like $15,000 to use the baseball fields. And as us parents, we had to go and bring our rototiller to the baseball fields. If you can see on my social media, which I tagged a bunch of parents, not politicians, but parents, because we care. But they've already paid for these leagues. You imagine leasing a truck, and after you lease that truck, they say the transmission don't work, or the engine don't work, or you have to share it with somebody else. Well, that's what's going on with our Hard baseball leagues. Right now, the leagues have already started. Games will be Saturday, and none of the fields are ready. Parents had to come on Saturday. Hard showed up for the photo shoot early in the morning and then left. And then parents had to use their minivans to haul the trash from the park. And then the Hard members, the 2 members that did stay there, only worked on the actual park itself, not the baseball fields. So the baseball fields that are already paid for are unusable. And we have games starting Saturday. And this is a consistent issue with Hard. If you talk to Hard about, or if you talk to parents, and I'm going to speak to parents, I hope the parents can hear me, but if you talk to any of these parents, that's why a lot of these kids are acting out, because Hard has these ridiculous classes that cost $300 a kid for a month. And what parent in the hood that has 3 kids can afford that? None. And if you ask some of these kids, like, hey, what can we do with where can we ride our bikes at? That's yet another question that Hard has no clue what they're doing, because let's be honest, they're holding the seats of position rather than being qualified to hold them seats. Hard, you guys need to make leagues. You know, I was a college athlete. I stayed out of jail and prison because most of my friends, instead of playing sports, or instead of acting a fool like most of my friends, I was protected by coaches. You ask the kids over here, they don't have that. And again, the leagues that they do have are so malnourished. Imagine this, parents are mowing the lawns with weed eaters. You're always worried about lawsuits. What if one of the parents would have shot an eyeball out with one of them weed eaters? What if one of the kids, because the grounds are so bad, tears an ACL because what they're leasing for isn't ready? And again, we're paying millions of dollars. I come from a small, tiny town, Aspen, Colorado. Tiny. We had a slice of the budget that Hard has. Yeah, we had year-round leagues in every sport. And whenever you try to talk to Hard about that, in fact, I hope Mr. Lawson reminds the president that elected officials, it is unconstitutional for you to block them on social media. Not even Trump can do that. And it's so that way we can voice our concerns just like this, because free speech isn't happy speech. It isn't cult member speech. It is the uncomfortable truth that you guys need to hear. And that is why our kids, a generation of kids, are acting a fool. Hard, you need to make leagues, not classes that cost $300 per kid. You can't afford that. We don't live in Aspen, Colorado. We live in Hayward, California. And if you guys don't know that on day one, you shouldn't have that seat. I'm sorry about that. Same for bikes. They don't want jumps. They don't want jump tracks.
Your time is up.
They want where they can do wheelies at. So you need to make
Mr.
leagues where these
Archuleta,
kids can do wheelies.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mark. Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you. Next is Sandra Archuleta.
I definitely want to echo what was said. I'm also a parent that took the video of my husband having to mow the lawn at this field. We've talked to the coach, and he has just like horror stories about how horrible Hard's maintenance is. And, you know, he's charging us as little as he can just to get the league going because Hard doesn't offer anything. I talked to kids, and I did a leadership academy with about 42 kids in the fall. And the number one reason they gave me for coming to my academy is because there's nothing to do. I had a town hall this past Saturday. All of my panelists said the same thing. Hard is failing. You're failing our children. And what that's leading to is kids on the freeway on bikes, kids doing drugs, kids, you know, getting into all kinds of trouble. And I land that at the feet of Hard. I talked to our coach, and he told me that he had a team come in from out of town, and he told them to go play on one of the fields. And Hard had put up signs that said, any league that's using this without a permit will have the cops called. And when they went and played, the cops were called. And when the cops showed up, I guess they were like shocked that Hard would do that, because why would Hard call the cops on kids that are trying to play in a field? And that's because, again, you're failing our children. And you guys can put up all these numbers. 260 kids that were helped by these programs of equity, that's a huge failure, especially if you're bragging about that being a huge percentage up. When I worked on the environmental justice element for the unincorporated area, you guys kept coming up. And every single time Hard comes up, it's to talk about how poorly you're doing your job. I help manage the ACA, the Ashland Community Association. It took them a year to get a room at the Ashland Community Center. You're unworkable. You know, it's everything with Hard is difficult, overregulated, and our kids are underserved, our communities are underserved, and I think it's time to stop with the toxic positivity in your presentations. I would have liked to see a slide of where you guys can do better. I would have liked to see 5 slides like that, because there's a lot of room for improvement. You shouldn't be patting yourselves on the back. It took me, I've looked for leagues for my kids for years. Never found a single league that Hard does. Why is that? Because you guys treat Hard like it's a money-making entity, and it's not. It's a recreation entity. You're supposed to be serving our kids, not profiting from our communities. When I tried to rent that hall, one of the centers for my leadership academy, you guys wanted to charge me like $700-800 a day.
Ms. Archuleta, your time is up.
I hope you do better, because you're failing us.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to close public comment and then come back up here to the dais. And I don't know which side to start on, but let me do this. I will start with Councilmember Cermeño, and then I'll just go down the line and I'll, oh, actually, if you don't mind, no, actually what I was gonna do is, can we start with our former colleague and Director Sarah Lamnin, who is online, and then we'll start with you, Councilmember. Director Lamnin, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to do that since I feel like I have both sides of the equation. So I will appreciate all of the great work that's happened and acknowledge that we all are striving and getting better at all of the things we do. And sort of in that vein, I really would hope that we could have a joint session on La Vista as opposed to separate ones, because I think there a lot has changed since the last time we got together as a board to talk about this project. I remember what our intent was, and for instance, there wasn't a capital improvement team or a capital team at HARD then. The prices have changed. Our vision for some of the community needs have changed. We didn't have Mia's Dream then, and we didn't have the huge demand for bikes that we do now. That has been heard loud and clear. And so I think the opportunity, rather than having it as HARD talking about La Vista and the city talking about La Vista, I look forward to us doing that together. Other than that, I appreciate all of the great work on homelessness, obviously, and of course, all the great work at HARD. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
Thank you, and thank you to the HARD staff. It's tremendous. I've been working with HARD for many, many years. I appreciate the partnership with our All America festivals. That's excellent. Let's see, one question. HARD is the largest park district in California, or west of the Mississippi, or the United States?
We are actually the largest park and recreation district. So our neighbors in California.
In California.
Our neighbors to the East Bay Regional Park District is a regional park district, mostly open space. But when it comes to districts with neighborhood parks and open space, there's one that's 1,200 miles and larger. We're 100 square miles, but there's nobody who serves more people. So the one that's 1,200 miles is down in Ojai, Indio, Desert Valley. So very large, but not nearly as many parks.
And as former colleague Landman told me a couple of days ago, or a couple of months ago, every Hayward resident is within a 10-mile walk, a 10-minute walk of a park in the neighborhood. So that's tremendous. So just a couple of comments. Thank you for the work, the partnership with our city on Weeks Park. It's an area that really definitely needs it. I miss a totem pole because I used to live near the area. Let's see. We also, I like the work that you do in partnership with us with HASPA, Hayward Area Shoreline Recreation, Shoreline Protection Agency, and maybe consider joining us in stopwaste.org. And my last comment is, I do receive emails from parents who are looking for a soccer field. So if we could work on that a little bit more, which would also mean keeping those, when we find them, keep them in good shape. And as we heard today, we also have a need to ensure that our baseball fields are kept in good shape. So maybe that's something that you can look into if possible.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, everyone. I'm lucky enough to serve on the HLEC committee, so I get to hear a lot of this stuff and ask a lot of questions along the way. I just want to thank HARD for the reach into the community with the scholarships and the health equity initiatives, especially the swimming. I think sort of offering those classes for free is really helping a new generation of kids make sure that they're safe in the water, and I think that's really important. I wanted to ask you, would you like to answer to the field situation as far as maintenance and stuff like that with the ball fields? You don't have to, I'm just curious.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really aware. I guess they were at Mount Eden Park. Mount Eden Park has a long history of that Little League helping to take care of that field. all of our Little Leagues help take care of their fields and help maintain them. I'm not sure about what's not ready before Saturday when Little League starts, but we'll make sure they are.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and then the Douglas Morrison Theater, I'm really happy about that. I got to see the Velveteen Rabbit there. That was really nice to be back in that theater. I think I've asked this before, but it'd be great to get a choir. I don't know if that's something hard. I've talked about that before. Let's see, and is that all I had? I think that's, I wanted to ask, on the safety stuff, Nicole, what's the time frame of those interactions? Is that a year?
It's 1 year.
The 1 year, okay. All right, yeah, some of those were pretty high for 1 year. Okay, I think that's it. And then also just, the waived rental fees for nonprofits and community partners that you've tried to accommodate when community partners come to you. I'm really glad you're reaching into the community that way. So thank you, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation and thanks for your partnership. Great report today. Hearing, I think, from the community, I also just wanted to ask a couple of questions related to your fees. How does that rank up against other, districts and recreation? And are there scholarships available for people who may, have some kind of economic hardship for these classes? I know my own nephews have went through some of the classes and they could be, a little hard to sign up for, sometimes could be cost prohibitive. So how do you guys address that?
We'll scholarship anybody for up to 75% of the program costs or free as indicated in the previous presentation. All you have to do is apply for a scholarship. We haven't said no to anybody. We increased the scholarship dollars from, I think it was $30,000 a year 3 or 4 years ago from our foundation to over $150,000 last year in scholarships provided, as well as $200,000 in free rooms, meeting rooms, spaces, event spaces for community events.
How is that noticed to the community, or how is that shared?
It's as simple as anytime you go to our website to sign up for a program or class, it says scholarships are available. There's a whole page in our activity guide that goes to 104,000 homes. So it's pretty widely known. The Health Equity Initiative, COVID relief money has allowed us to put another $300,000 or $400,000 in free programming, all the free camps, all the free swim, 2 swim centers open free, everything from recreation swim to lap swim. So I feel like we've done a ton on the side of the house from free, low cost and no cost programming, and we just keep doing more. We think we just got another 188,000 passed through with the Gervasio Vasquez in the County Alameda for more of the health equity free programming. So it's a major thing on our focus on us, and it's a major part of our strategic plan.
Excellent, thank you. And then, do you just want to talk kind of generally about maintenance of your parks and your grounds? And I think we heard a little bit about the baseball field, but kind of generally, where does, I guess, the maintenance of the parks and the current status of the parks sit according to standards that they're measured against?
So we adopted park maintenance standards, the same ones that I used when I was in San Francisco. They came from New York. We developed standards for everything from fields to tables to restrooms to parking areas to trails and pathways, trees. Those were all evaluated through these standards, and you saw the scores this evening in your report. They averaged about 89%. I went back to Thomas and said, I probably think that maybe they're too easy, so that was the first initial beta test. Came in with those numbers. Some were definitely, 3 parks were below 60%. Everything else was above 70, Cs and above. But we're making the standards a little more stringent for some of the turf areas and other places where I feel like, when I look, I think if we started everything in the first evaluation about 75, then we'd be, as an average, we'd be able to go up or down dependent. But they are the standards adopted from San Francisco that I used there for, I think, 9 years, every park, every quarter. And I worked in areas where I saw park scores increase from like number 6 to number 2 in the city. And so it's a viable working system. We implemented it based upon the park standards, and we think the scores will just get better as they get 2 to 3 ratings for all 111 parks every quarter.
Excellent, thank you for that. My next question is around the rangers. How many rangers do you guys employ, and is that like a 24/7 type of situation for them?
We have a full-time public safety supervisor and administrator in the office we created. So when I started as a GM, we had, I think, 14 part-time rangers and 1 public safety manager. We now have 2 ranger supervisors that are on shift. The times are open. Our shifts, We leave the parks at midnight, we come back at 6 a.m. So there's about 6 hours where we're not enforcing the parks, but between closing all the gates and reopening the parks, we have staff on about 18 hours a day, over 2 shifts. There's a ranger or the public safety manager on all time with the rangers. We also just created a training officer position for our rangers as a lead ranger, and then we have training, incentive pay for, so if you go out and you do training, you get paid extra to train the rangers. We have about 12 part-time and then those 4 full-time positions.
Got it. And then in the top interactions, one of them was camping and lodging. You know, I know that we're tackling this homelessness crisis in collaboration, but I guess what is your approach to dealing with campers in a park?
Well, the park hours state very clearly that there's no one in the parks from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. when the parks are closed. So we just try to ask them to move along if they have a place. If they don't, we generally let people be. We're not in the private. We don't kick people out onto the sidewalk or out of the streets out of a park. We try to interact with them. We try to see if they have somewhere to go. If they don't, we come back in the morning and see if they're all right.
Got it. All right.
They're all adjustments. There's no. They're not sworn officers. They're not armed. It's mostly a park ambassador type situation where we just try to talk people through, the alcohol or the park violation or whatever.
Well, I'm glad to see the collaboration between HARD and the city as it relates to this, because identifying who those people are and getting them connected to services, I think, is a priority of all of us sitting up here. So thank you for coming here tonight and for this presentation and for addressing these questions.
Thank you.
And also just to also support what the director was saying is, as we heard at the HLAC meeting, I think it was last month, HARD works very close with the city, but in particular works with our HART unit and the PD and with our maintenance services. And I know Mr. Peterson's crew and our crew work very close, and the data you guys showed at the HLAC meeting was, much of it was here too, but clearly there is a partnership, and clearly we're addressing this as quickly as we can without criminalizing the unhoused. And I think your team and our team has done a phenomenal job with that. So thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I wanted to thank you for bringing out Mobile Rec. I don't hear enough about that program, and it's been really helpful at events and bringing the activities to the community. So thank you. I hope you continue to do it, expand on it. The community loves it. Also wanted to thank Ms. Megan Tiernan on the improvements at Palmacia. I definitely was a strong advocate on making improvements for that particular park, and the community's really excited about it. Just someone told me on Saturday that they're excited to see that just the sidewalks are getting improved. It helps with walking with their children, walking with their pets. So that is going to be a quality of life improvement there. So thank you for particularly that park. Also, wanted to confirm that the Tennyson Park, that includes Mia's Dream, right? When it comes to visitors, or?
Yes.
Yes, just want to make sure, because I didn't
think that went from 9 to 91%, a 91% increase.
Just want to make sure, because on the rankings, it doesn't say Mia's Dream. I just want to let the community know
yeah,
that
actually,
it's Tennyson.
I misquoted there. It is part of Tennyson Park, and that actually went from 9,000 to 91,000 visitors a year when the playground was
Awesome.
finished.
Yep, just wanted to highlight that.
And phase 2's coming. We're getting ready to redo the skate park and put in a pump track for bike riders.
Oh, great.
Some other features in the park to kind of complete that end of the park, basketball court.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just wanted to make sure that we named that park, because as we know, that was an important park for our community. Definitely agree with HART Director Lamnon on getting coordination for La Vista. Wanted to hear a little bit more about the week's working group, and just wanted to hear some of the outcomes there that we're expecting out of that working group.
Is that you?
So the week's group is partnered with the city, a variety of different groups that provide services, and also our maintenance team and the city's maintenance team. It includes Amy Cole from the city manager's office, and so we work through individuals that we know are consistently in the park, that we can name, that we can get services to. We also talk about some of the issues that are happening, whether we're having fires in the park due to trying to stay warm, and look at some of the issues, that concerns that have, if we have individuals that we need to involve. PD also attends those meetings if we have individuals that need some PD involvement to help us assist with some things. So we reach out that way, and we work as a team to kind of look at every issue that comes up, what's out there, how we can move things around, and the different concerns that both the users, the library is there, the users are concerns that we have in regards to that.
So it sounds like it's more ongoing support.
Correct. So it is we meet twice a month, the one with the homeless group as a whole, or the unhoused group as a whole, and the other for the Weeks Park specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I do have a question about just communication with Little League and the association. Maybe is there some opportunities to communicate more about what's happening with fields? Are there meetings with the association that we can have with the Little Leagues?
Yep.
Okay. And then also, I know you all do a great job of communicating your improvements, your capital improvement plan. Maybe there's a section of, I'm not sure on the website right now, I'm not recalling, but is there a section of just calling out sports facilities that are getting upgraded that can just be highlighted just for more communication?
So if you go to haywardrec.org/hard@work, it will pull up the site where all of the parks and all of where they are currently in their status, what the park project is, and if we have renderings or drawings or everything, you can look by area there and see all the improvements included there.
Okay, great. And then the last question I have is about courses and events. You all do a great job of providing events throughout the year. Pumpkin Splash at the Plunge, and the Easter egg hunt. Are there more opportunities for those type of events? I feel like there's a lot of classes, but those events are pretty reasonable or free. What are some of the things that we're looking at in the future? Do you all know?
Hi, thank you. So last year we launched Family Fun Day series. So I think you've seen that. It's like the Bubble Lady and Magician. So those are on different weekends and are very low cost or free events for families. Anyone in our health equity program, the ticket is free. Then we launched our teen series, and that's a monthly free program for teens. So far we've done paint night, movie night, the baking event is happening. And let's see, last year we also did the Touch a Truck event. I don't know if you guys were able to make it to that, but that was wildly popular. We did some party hards in the park. So we actually partnered with Habitat Museum in Berkeley, and they brought out a mobile museum into Weeks Park. I think we had 700 families actually register for that event. It was all free. We did free pickleball, basketball, scooter, skateboarding lessons, roller skating. So we're really working on those because I think it's really the way to reach the most amount of people, have something really accessible, no cost. And we actually have budget set aside to do a lot of new events this year, as well as a events coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Councilman Goldstein.
Thank you. Very thorough report. It's a good staff work there. Jim, you're at the podium because you wanted to ask something?
Oh, no, I thought you were going to ask a question. I was going to get ready to.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going to ask a question. I'm building up to it.
Okay.
But first, my compliments to you and your staff. One of the things that I find really attractive about Hayward is just the incredible parks. I noticed it when I first started looking around Hayward for a place to live. That was 19 years ago, and every year it seems like there's some new treasure that I find. I didn't know this greenway was here. I didn't know this park was here. I didn't know this park had that kind of facility. And things like Mia Dreams Playground, stuff like that. It just, I just think it really makes this community very special. And oftentimes when I'm talking to businesses or other homeowners that are maybe looking to relocate to Hayward, the very first part of my conversation always includes the parks. So I want you to know I really respect what you do. And so I'm looking over the plans, and I think you said there was 111 parks. Was that the right number? And out of 111, you said, if I'm remembering the statistics correctly, 64% were at 70% or above, or were they all at 70% and higher? What was that number? Do you remember on your quality? Yeah. So the specific number is not quite as important as the next question, which is really of the things that you see need to be done. And I remember you calling out that the graffiti might get all of the parks up into the numbers where you want them to be at 70% or above. Did I understand that metric correctly?
Yeah, the graffiti is... The graffiti is a major element that brings down a lot of the parks. We're still analyzing other pieces, but if we're looking for low-hanging fruit to really raise a bunch of those parks up quickly, the graffiti is a major issue, as well as if you look at the adjustments and things that our rangers work on, graffiti is also a major drain on the resources there. So really looking and thinking about that as a low-hanging fruit to really kind of fix some of those parks or make them look a little bit better.
Got you. Are there any other partnerships that we can undertake between the parks and the city that might help with those ratings? I mean, is Keep Hayward Clean and Green, am I allowed to bring that up? Any partnerships within the city that if we were to strengthen those bonds might be helpful?
You know, I think for a problem such as graffiti, collaboration and building consensus among a lot of community groups, communities, and governmental agencies is really the best way to go forward. So we're always look forward to finding more community groups, especially really local community groups that are near those parks. I think taking ownership of that park is a major way to really reduce graffiti. It's been shown in public planning throughout. And so really figuring out how do you identify those really local communities to take ownership and support us in identifying the graffiti and so that we could have a quickly address it.
Okay, very good. In some of the work that we do, we reach out to houses of worship because they tend to be community influencers. Is that something that you folks have looked into? Is something that you might look into as a way of having them help adopt their local parks and area?
Yeah, I would never say no to partnering with any organization that's willing to support us with that work. So if they're there and we have their contact and they're interested, I'm always open to reach out and see how we can best address those problems.
Good, very good. And I'm always open to helping. So if you think of some way that I can help,
absolutely, I'll reach out then. Thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Councilmember Syra.
Can I just, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
On the concept of Adopt a Park, we started the Volunteers in Parks program about a year and a half ago. We probably had 30 volunteer in park days on the weekends. The whole idea is people from those communities coming out to help with their local parks. They all volunteers. They don't come because we can't do it or we don't pay them. They just, and it was all about trying to get people back into the local parks. If I had my way, I'd have someone every weekend, probably 50 a year, where people could come out and work in the parks. We did it in San Francisco. It worked great. We had something every single weekend, someone coming out, buying into some ownership, finding out what they wanted. Sometimes they can paint out graffiti. We've talked on the graffiti side. The problem I think he explained with graffiti is there's 5 different elements where graffiti is part of the rating system. So if you walk up to a picnic table and someone tagged it with a paint pencil the other day, it goes down and takes the whole scores down for the park. So what we're looking at, like I said, we hired another painter. We're looking at probably putting another painter on in the next year. We've increased our workforce in parks by, I think, 20% in just the last 2 years. So we're in a hiring mode after 30 years of freezing every position when they became vacant. So we think we'll get a handle on it as we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I really appreciated seeing all of the data around our park usage. I had no idea that 2 million residents a year are visiting Hayward parks, and I'm really excited to see that attendance is bouncing back after the pandemic as well. I'm really happy to hear that you're connected with the HEART team already. That was going to be one of my questions, so thank you, Councilmember Bonilla, for pointing that out. I'm really happy that we're connecting all of our resources and coordinating all of our resources, and just also wanted to express gratitude for supporting people's budget projects. I went to the skate day at Weeks Branch, and a parent broke down in tears of joy saying, "I've never seen an event like this in my neighborhood." And so it just meant a lot for this project to come to fruition and be a meaningful partnership between HARD and the city of Hayward. I believe you recently redesigned your website. It looks pretty good, but I noticed the sign-up process is still a little old school. Is that in the middle of being updated?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We are, I guess the history of the district, remembering I've only worked for the district for 5 years. The history of the district was just probably not enough offerings for a district our size, not enough staff for a district our size, not enough recreation program staff for a district our size. I think passing Measure F1 was the first step in recognizing that infrastructure had been decaying for 50 years with no improvements. We continue to plow forward. Like I said, we've increased our workforce by a large amount in just 2 short years, and we continue to. Our next focus is on recreation, and the focus is on program leader level recreation and below to be able to put more services and programs on the ground. So we continue to have really good years in regard to service, but we're trying to serve 309,000 people over 100 square miles. Our budget, $41 million a year. The Education Revenue Augmentation Fund takes $21 million of our property tax a year for schools in California that we never see. If I had $21 million a year more, we'd probably be sitting here having huge parties in really nice big parks that look like somewhere over in the suburbs. But we just continue to struggle, and they continue to take the money. So we're working to see if we can get that carve out back for at least Parks and Rec. There's millions and millions of dollars going into ERAF from water districts, fire districts, sanitary districts, every special district, 3,200 special districts in California. Park and Rec is only about, we're the largest. We're 21 million. The next closest to us is like 16 in Livermore, and then it just slides down. It's like $1 or $2 million. But for an agency, Ardenwood with $1 million budget, it's a lot of money. So again, I'm not here to make excuses or cry poor. But $21 million a year is a lot of money that if we had our hands on, we wouldn't be talking about half of these things, and everything could be free and for everybody. It's just not the logistics. If you recall, 7 years ago, my general manager borrowed $1 million to make payroll. Today, we're sitting here telling you the workforce is expanding, the budget's expanding, the services are expanding, more things are free, more demand in parks, more load on those parks from users, and we're meeting the challenge. And so it's not easy. It's been a rough road to plow, but I think we're doing a pretty good job in that regard.
That's fantastic, and I appreciate you sharing that additional context. I was really excited to hear that there's over $100,000 in scholarships available to help make programming free for families. As I go through the sign-up process to register, maybe a request for the PIO here is to surface that scholarship information next to the fee amount, because as I was trying to go through the experience myself as a former UX designer myself, it didn't feel that clear that there was a scholarship option. And so when we hear critiques that these classes cost too much, how are we presenting this information to the public is just a small point of feedback there. I was curious if you could speak to one of the commenters' request for supporting leagues. I mean, could the amount of scholarships we have help subsidize leagues, or what would the tension be around that?
We actually received only $1 million in COVID relief money, but a large portion of that was put in there for free sports leagues. So I'd have to check with the sports supervisors on the status of that. But it is part of what we can do. Again, we're only limited by the capacity and number of people that we have on staff. I did want to go back to fees. Our fees are set based upon comparative agencies across the San Francisco East Bay area. We set them in a range, and ours are some of the lowest of cities in other areas. If you look at Fremont, San Leandro, Oakland, other places, our fees are very comparative. We don't put our fees above anybody else in the area. So
yeah, I would never assume you're trying to nickel and dime here. I just think if those scholarships are available, let's make sure folks know those scholarships are available.
Thank you.
we did have a joint working session last year, and this might be a request from either your staff or our city staff, but I would be curious to see, a comparator of what we brought up last year when we first met and, what we're talking about today. And so just a request for our collective staffs here is when we come back a year from now, it'd be nice to hear some of these comments or concerns referenced, saying, here's what was talked about last year, here's what we've done about it since, because I don't want to keep having the same conversation over and over again, as much as I enjoyed the presentation. More than half of the violations have to do with staying past hours, about 4.5 out of 7.5K. To me, that symbolizes a demand to want to be in parks for longer. I'm curious, this would be a staffing and funding question, of course, but are these folks that are there between midnight to 6 a.m.? Are these folks that stay maybe from 10 to 11? Or are these folks that are just there after sunset? It just seems like there's a demand to want to use parks for longer. And rather than penalizing that, should we be expanding hours? I'm just curious what your take on is.
My take is that the park should close at 10 and open at 6 a.m.
Okay.
We did that in San Francisco. We saved $2.1 million a year in vandalism and problems and cleanup. It's traditional that these parks close at night and we open in the morning. And as I said, if you don't have a place to stay and you're there and you're not causing problems, we'll just leave you alone.
Understood. I was curious, some of us had a chance or the opportunity to visit our sister city in Portugal, and a lot of their parks incorporated small kiosks that served, light food or drink, and it really helped kind of tie together the space as a third space. Has HARD ever explored something like this or even piloting something like this?
We were actually contacted and offered the concession stand at Palma Cia Park for free to a concessionaire, and he never took us up on it.
Okay.
We'd be happy to let food carts, other carts, and the parks that don't have concessions. Again, my experience has been it's really hard to make a living trying to sell coffee in a park for people walking by. But maybe if it's a popular enough park. We know Kennedy Park, the concession stand works for that concessionaire. But again, the return to us on that is almost nothing just to get them in there to do the business. So we'd have to look on a park by park. But if you have a park or a place where you think people would want to stop and support a vendor, that'd be great.
Got it. And then as you may be aware, we recently passed a sidewalk vending ordinance. I'm curious what HARD's policy is towards sidewalk vendors or vendors that set up in your parks. Is a permit required? What does that process look like? Because there might be some overlap here in providing services to park goers.
It generally depends on if there's a concessionaire that we have contracted with for that park. There's 5 sports fields that have snack bars that Little Leagues and programs run. It varies park by park. We were aware of the park and sidewalk ordinance in the beginning. We approached, and parks weren't going to be included in that. So we've worked on our own. But if you're a vendor in a park selling something and there's no designated provider for that park, we generally don't ask you to leave.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Another concern or point of feedback I get from residents is dog parks, and I saw that one of the other issues that there needs to be corrective behavior for is putting a dog on a leash. But some residents complain we don't have enough dog parks, or the rules around dogs in parks isn't clear enough. I was wondering if you could speak to that or plans to designate dog parks.
We have 7 designated dog parks. We're working currently to develop another one in the Cannery Tower area, the housing development. We're in process with those neighbors. They came to us and said they'd like another dog park. We're working with the city to do that right now. Dogs are required to be on a leash in all the non-dog park areas because of the multi-use nature of it, and they're not allowed on sports fields.
Okay, thank you for that. The Plunge receives a lot of programming. Is that one of your capital improvement projects that's coming up soon? Or I was just curious if you could speak to...
I'm sorry, the what receives a lot of programming?
Sorry, the Hayward Plunge. Could you speak to your plans for Plunge renovations or a timeline around Plunge renovations?
Yeah, it's going out for design bids next week.
Fantastic. Community center activation is another topic that comes up quite a bit. The city recently conducted a study on placemaking, and something that I've heard reoccurring from residents is how do we use these community centers? I was wondering if you could speak to that. Is it possible, for example, let's say San Felipe Park, how would a resident go about booking a space like that? And how do you feel about the fees currently being charged to do so, if possible?
A resident would simply call our customer service desk. They would tell them how to rent the fees. The fees are all set, again, based on comparative agencies. There's 5 tiers of fees, from nonprofit to for-profit to I'm putting on a fundraiser, so there's various levels. But you can just call our customer service desk to actually rent any facility that we have.
Got it. And will there be an online booking process in the future for that?
Is there online booking for that now? No. Not now, no.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's, you could probably do it if you had the right software to be able to block out what's been booked and not booked, but there's 3 people picking up phones, booking facilities all the time, so I don't know if the logistics of that, and then the classes and the times, we try to have someone call and just talk to somebody who picks up a phone. We have 4 people picking up the phones every day for that kind of stuff and helping people personally.
Understood. It's nice to have that level of customer service. So I really appreciate the question around wanting to improve bike infrastructure through HARD. The city recently received a $4 million grant to help us improve bike infrastructure. This might be a question for our own staff, but I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of partnership, maybe through HLAC, to designate, adding bike parking or more bike parking near parks. So, if we're doing it along school lines, there's also the ability to do them towards parks as destinations for students after school.
I mean, I definitely think it's something we can look at. The recent grant we received specifically around bike and safety around schools. So that could be something, sort of safe parking zones, safe travel zones. So we can consider looking at that with respect to hard parks too. I think it's not, because it's not just around schools. So
definitely.
And we worked with Bicycle Coalition, Alameda County, San Lorenzo Unified School District. We've received $27 million in grants to do a trail from the Bay to Castro Valley along the San Lorenzo Creekway. A ton of that was about safe routes to school and bicycling.
That's fantastic. Just a few more points here. I wanted to bring up the concept of land trusts as one of the pathways where I think it's objective 2.2, you talk about the donation of property or the disposition of property. Just wanted to put community land trusts as a model out there. There are open space land trusts like the John Muir Land Trust that specialize in helping take public lands and putting them under collective stewardship if they're being disposed of by public agencies. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there. And then the last point I have here is just mainly a question for you is ways that we could collaborate better as organizations through our communication strategies. Is there currently regular communication between HARD and our city when it comes to promoting some of your events and vice versa through our respective networks?
We send our constant contact out to the city in the mailing list that has all of our events on it. We get to stack events and try to promote those. I mean, regularly with the city manager and the assistant city manager. So I believe we're communicating better, which was the outcome of that last workshop we did, and then we didn't communicate about another one.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for taking the time to answer all these questions, and thanks again for the report tonight.
I believe that's everybody here on the City Council. Director Rosen, President Rosen.
All right, so I will be brief. So I want to actually echo what Councilmember Andrews and Director Lambden was saying. I really look forward to a more in-depth workshop and discussion about some of the things that overlap our agencies. I was at HLAC and I actually appreciated the city's presentation about hearing about some of the programs and particularly the HART response teams and the direction that's going. I think that's I think it's very helpful for the community, and I think that being the park district for the city of Hayward and for the community, we serve a vital role, and I'm very happy and very proud of the work that we've been doing and that what we've accomplished and the direction that we're going. The park maintenance standards, as you just saw, and the Placer AI data is phenomenal. The change that's happened about that and about the direction that we can go, we know where to go. We can actually use this to be proactive about responses and actually finding out where to devote resources and actually where we have deficits. I think it's incredible. I appreciate the work that our staff has done to present a lot of this, and I would love to chat with each and every one of you if you want to sit down anytime about any of these things. So thank you.
Director Hatcher.
Thank you, Mayor Salinas, and thank both staffs for the presentations tonight. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of passion that goes into to what we do up here and what the staff does. And so, and you know, in 1944, you know, the residents of the Hayward area and the unincorporated area said, "Hey, we need a park district, and we need programming." And you know, as we know, we're celebrating our 80th year this year, and you know, with that comes, you know, when you're part of an organization, you take on the 80 years of the good and the bad. And from my 10 years with HARD and what has been done and changed and worked on and discussed and partnered we've done a lot internally, and now we talk a lot about telling our story and really being able to allow what the public has said. We know what needs to be done. We're continuing to listen what needs to be done, and it's just an ever-going, ongoing process. And so I have seen, I can document, you know, in my mind, and each one of you that have not only been partnering with us to our events, supporting it, watching Mayor, you know, I don't think he picked up a shovel, but I mean, he was planting trees. It was the idea of what this collaboration can be and will continue to be is really important to this community, and so it's always improving. I like Councilmember Goldstein saying, hey, what could he do to work, you know, offering yourself up as we do with the city and the city events. You know, when we see development coming into the city of Hayward, and it's, you know, we do receive impact fee from that, and I'm always looking at and talking to developers when I can, saying, hey, make sure park-like features are in there. I think getting to the table is something that we can really look at as a joint kind of a working process for us to say, hey, as things are coming in this community for, you know, hard as the park district recreational provider for the city of Hayward, to be at the table. And it seems simple, but it allows us to be the park professional, to do the work, to be able to have our input to that. So I'm always, you know, wanting to be at projects early. We talked about you know, what's happening with blight in our parks and, you know, with graffiti, continuing our, you know, mural program, art program, you know, connecting our VIP work with the Keep Hayward Clean and Green, you know, incredibly important, incredibly poignant to see the community folks be empowered by being a part of their park district, being a part of their city. I think it's very clear we see that benefit from those types of interactions. The Hayward Area Shoreline Planning Agency, we have an incredible gem down at the shoreline, and that partnership between East Bay Regional and the City of Hayward and HARD, and now the Dischargers group in the Oro Loma Sanitary District really showcase what also we have in this community. And I think it continues to work. The HLAC, which is the Hayward Local Agencies Committee, gets together with Hayward Unified School District, and this is the sounding board of our opportunities. And again, continuing to bring up our issues, deal with what we're doing, what we're not doing, and those are the pieces there. And just to end on this is that, you know, our general manager was very clear about our $21 million that is pulled from us each year. You know, we would not have to go out for a bond. We would not have to look at as much cost recovery in what they do with our programming. You know, when you look at our mission, you know, it has learning as a component of that. And when I look at the educational city opportunities that our dear mayor is, you know, continuing to work so hard, and the rest of you, to make sure that we are an education city. We are educators also, and, you know, something that isn't really kind of looked at as clearly with Park and Rec, that we have a Hayward Shoreline Center. We have Sulphur Creek, which is invaluable. We have our camps. We have our swim lessons. These are education, learning, life skills that, as we, you know, continue to see very clearly what recreation is doing to our community in a positive way. We watch with that pandemic, you know, stay in your house, go to your parks, and to look at the pure benefit of what, you know, we provide is, I'm excited to see the opportunities that we have together and continue those partnerships. So with that, I appreciate your guys' time.
Director Hodges.
I'm on deck, huh? Well, I sat here and listened to the family about baseball, and people that know me, I've been out on the grass for about 40 years and retired now for about 15. Now, I know there's been a lot of changes, especially with parents' attitudes and who, I don't know, it looks like you're about the same age group I was in, that get rooked into becoming a coach or something, and the leagues have kind of shriveled up. It's basically pay to play, and part of that problem is because parents would rather give you a couple of bucks than to go out and paint a field and stuff and be part of the community. And I don't know what the answer is here. I just know, too, as far as the weather is not really, sometimes fields can't be made available. That if Mother Mother Nature calls the game or calls the field. Well, no, I'm not saying that it's probably a different thing that's happened with you guys. And like I said, I've been working on the honeydew list since that's what happens when you paint fields and stuff. You leave a lot of stuff at home that doesn't get done. But I would think there would be a solution for this, and I urge you to come to one of our meetings and tell your story at public comment, which is early on in the meeting. And I'm sure with staff and stuff, we can come with some kind of a resolution for this. But I'm sorry that you didn't have the enjoyment that I had for 40 years out there. But we'll see what we can do, and I hope I see you at one of our meetings. That's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to wrap this up by asking a question about an issue that has never been brought up here, and that's about public art. I'm kidding. I say that in the spirit of my council member here, Councilmember Andrews, who is a fierce advocate for public art. And you know, there are some parks out there. I think that has done a wonderful job at incorporating mural art, like the Rao Ranch has done some phenomenal work. I mean, literally painting most of the walls out there. You know, a lot of the blank spaces, and they've been maintained and preserved quite well over the years. And I was just curious, you know, as we have, you know, been talking about up here, and what we have learned over the years is, you know, public art is very expensive. And I was just curious, are there any plans, or is there any sort of thinking around public art in some of the newly renovated parks today that would be sort of, you know, like placemaking, you know, features, or something that will attract people to take photographs or to or do of the such. I'm just curious if there was any thinking around that.
I was looking at my capital and planning director, because I believe we include public art elements in the new projects. I know that there's murals down on East 14th and so the bond funds don't fund anything but functional art. But so the sculpture at Mia's playground was funded by bond or non-bond? We used donation money for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you tell me you've been talking to the Arts Commission about mural projects?
No, we've done a couple mural projects, but in general, when I've worked on public art.
So the answer would be no.
Okay.
I'm looking at people thinking that we were doing a better job of putting art in parks and doing murals in parks where they need it. I know we did. We've done one at like Jack Holland Park, which isn't in Hayward because there was a graffiti problem. So a lot of them, I know that Palmacia had a huge mural done around the snack bar. So we do look at, I know that we're trying to rename a park, and one of the ideas is to put the Arandis lettering like it looks down at Park in City Hall and the Cathedral at Arandis, to have that. So we have looked into that. We'd love to put art in the parks, but I guess it's not part of a formal project for us. Maybe that's why you've discussed it so much too.
No, well, and the other reason why I asked this question is because, like I said, I could not be sitting here talking about public capital improvement projects, sitting next to Councilmember Andrews and not ask the question. But I think, were you going to make a comment?
I was just going to say, I'm glad you mentioned Palmacia Park, because that was in partnership with the Key Perry Clean and Green Task Force, as well as the city. So I wanted to thank you for that project. And I know that we worked on a referral regarding public art, so there will be more information coming soon about what the city will do, and maybe there's some partnership opportunities there with art.
Thank you. And you did say Clean and Green. We have worked with Clean and Green on the next 8 cleanup dates that I think you were in Longwood the other day, and it continues to roll through a lot of our parks. So,
Council Members Arminio.
You did do a very good job at Sorensen Park with a baseball motif painted by Andy Kong, so that was very good.
I appreciate that.
Well, good. And then I'll look forward to more discussion and thinking around public art at the parks. But
We will definitely be discussing it. You can count on that.
well, I think that wraps this up here, unless staff has anything. And if staff doesn't have anything, I just wanted to again, thank you and your staff. I think all of us up here that were, from Hayward, we all use the parks. I grew up in parks. Of course, many of you know my sister worked for HARD for many, many years. And, I will never forget, she always talked about HARD being part of our family. And it was just something that we grew up with. And I know that, as we, up here at the council, I know we all have kids up here, and they use the parks today, and so just thank you very much for continuing your service and providing great, healthy, thriving, fun, and free entertainment at parks in Hayward. So thank you. I'm going to take about a 5-minute break so that we can transition, and then we can go into our next item. Thank you. 5-minute break. Councilmember Goldstein, if we can get back at the table. Where's Goldstein? Or where's Syra? See outside? Okay. Okay. Okay, you guys, let's sit down. We gotta get started. Yeah. Madam City Clerk, you ready?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor. You can go live.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Okay. Wanted to thank the HARD partners being here, and it was a great presentation, great discussion. And while it was a wonderful discussion, nothing beats a discussion like the mid-year annual budget. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now introduce item fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget review. Adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget amendments and receive and review the 5-year general fund financial plan update. And I believe our fierce director of finance will kick this off. Ms. Gonzalez.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The item this evening is to review the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget and update to the 5-year general fund long-range model update. So wanting to give kind of a high level of the proposed changes for mid-year for specifically the general fund. Calling your attention to the kind of light green color of the top of the table, highlighting some proposed changes in our revenue projections. The revenues listed here are not just the limited number of revenues. We have a very large number of revenue sources, but wanting to highlight the changes to those particular revenues. So at the fiscal year adoption, we had adopted projections of $199.9 million. The change does reflect $10.1 million. We are expecting to receive an increase in property tax over what was projected at fiscal year 24 adopted by about $2.2 million. Utility user tax is projected to increase by about $3 million. During our February 6th work session, we did discuss kind of a larger increase in the utility user tax that we experienced in fiscal year 23. It does appear that we are trending in the same order for fiscal year 24, and so this does reflect an increase in utility user tax, and that does attribute to an increase in energy use, but really the significant change is one of our top energy generating companies has significantly increased their production. And so in prior years, they had operated around 5 or 10%, but we have seen the operations around 80 to 90%. And so there's been a significant increase in that utility user tax from that company. We also have an increase. It's a one-time reimbursement from the Workers' Compensation Fund over the course of several years in order to meet funding obligations for the Workers' Compensation Fund. There was additional funding put into that fund balance. We have exceeded that funding plan obligation, and so there is a reimbursement to the general fund of $4.5 million, and then we do have some grant revenue appropriations of about $500,000. So that total change in projections for revenue is 10.1, which brings our projection to 210.0 by the end of fiscal year 2024. The middle, the light blue color is the operating expenses. This again is a higher level summary. We'll go into detail about the new requests in a couple slides after this. The fiscal year 23 budget carry forwards account for $4.1 million. So those are funds that were carried over from fiscal year 23 to 24 for us to continue to do the work that was set in for fiscal year 23. Fiscal year 2024, previous council appropriations account for about $560,000. Employee contract costs for fiscal year 24 account for about 1.7, and then new mid-year requests, which we'll discuss this evening, account for 1.9 or close to $2 million. So the adopted operating budget in June of 2023 was $204.9 million. The total operating adjustments is $8.3 million for a total change of to a new revised mid-year budget of $213.3 million. Wanting to separate kind of operational expenses from loans that the city is looking at and issued this fiscal year. You will see the 8.6, which was the loan to the Hayward Economic Development Corporation for the purchase of Cinema Place. And then also on this spreadsheet this evening and asking for authority is $1 million for the employee home loan pilot program. So in 2019, the program was getting ready to launch. We were supposed to have our very first lottery in 2020, and we had to pause on that due to the pandemic. And so we are hoping to launch, we're currently launching it, and with our first scheduled lottery draw on April 1st. So this $1 million loan is also for your review this evening. So wanting to go a little more detailed into the specific requests being presented to you for consideration this evening. We do not have any mid-year personnel-related changes, so no new position adds being presented this evening. The non-personnel expenses being presented, $183,500 for services and software solutions at the city manager's office. The U.S. Conference of Mayors for $20,000, that is a membership, and so that's a membership cost for that particular professional organization. And then we do have an increase one time of $8,000 for the Alameda County's Mayor's Dinner. This is a dinner that's hosted by the 15 different cities within Alameda County. It is rotated, so we usually host this event about every year and a half. We do budget this. We did switch this year with the city of Oakland, and so we hosted another event, which is why we were asking for the additional increase of the $8,000, was that we actually hosted two events in one fiscal year. Okay. We are looking to reallocate some internal service fees of $26,000. There's an increase for inspection fees and plan check services of $500,000 in development services. Expenses to support downtown special events, $40,000. The city's increase in its assessment fee is to the Downtown Hayward Improvement Association is $5,581. $11,000 for transfer out to our general fund capital fund for the purchase of a freezer for our animal control to continue with their normal operations. And then $165,000 for transfer out to the to the information technology fund, fleet management fund for fuel costs, as well as deferred repairs and maintenance of $436,000. That cost is allocated. It is not solely a cost allocated to the general fund. It is allocated to varying funds that are supported with those efforts. So we do see allocation to our enterprise funds as well, so water, sewer as well. And then the general fund liability insurance, the city's general fund portion of that cost is $296,000. And then facility management for increased security services, PG&E costs for another $300,000. So the total expenses is 1.9 or about $2 million for new requests. Again, separating the previously approved home loan program for employees and asking for that appropriation to fulfill those loans of $1 million. So wanting to spend some time kind of going over the city's 5-year forecast, and including the update. And just wanting to highlight, there is, we wanted to highlight a view two different ways. So you'll see that kind of larger blue line in the center of the table. Focusing on fiscal year 24 adopted, we had projected a use of reserves of about 5.1 million. You will see in the revised fiscal year 24 proposed this evening is 3.3 million. And again, really looking at the operational requests that we're asking for this evening and how that impacts the long-term general fund forecast. Below that blue line takes into consideration the operational impacts as well as the two loans being presented. So one is the employee home loan pilot program for $1 million, and then the Economic Development Corporation loan for $8.6 million. When you incorporate the projected use of reserves for operating expenses and the two loans, it does bring our net ending balance to 29.8 million in fiscal year 24 with a 14% fund balance rate. Also included in this are soft estimates for the repayment of the economic development loan, which is scheduled to begin in fiscal year 2026. The terms of those repayment periods is still being reviewed, so these are estimates, and this amount could change based as we continue to determine how much the Economic Development Corporation can leverage to pay back each fiscal year. Right now it is $575,000 each year for a 15-year term. So at one of our previous meetings, we had a conversation about looking at general fund reserves, and we had presented a chart which showed the projected use of fund balance at the time of adoption versus actuals. We wanted to provide a similar snapshot for you this evening to really demonstrate when we bring the mid-year and we have an opportunity to really review our revenues and how that impacts our projected year-end balance. The purple line here represents the actual reserve balance, the actual reserves used by the end of fiscal year, and the green is what was presented during the mid-year process. There's some peaks and valleys here. In fiscal year 2020, we projected at mid-year. It happened to be the same evening that we presented mid-year was the same evening that we declared a state of emergency, a local emergency. And so those revenue projections obviously were impacted where we ended our fiscal year. And so we had ended our fiscal year using reserves about 5.2 million. A lot of that had to do with impacts to our revenues, but also our response to providing services to communities and those that were most vulnerable during that time. The city of Hayward was one of the first agencies to set up a testing site, and so some of those expenses are shown here for use of reserves for 2020. And then in 21, 22, and 23, we start to stabilize our revenue streams. And we do receive in fiscal year 21 a number of grants, again related to COVID response. So we did end our fiscal year in a positive. We had projected to use 1.2 million in fiscal year 2021, but given a number of grants that we received in response to COVID, we actually ended the year with a positive 5.7 million. And then as you can see in fiscal year 2023, we start to get a lot closer in where we project the fiscal year to end and where we actually end. So wanting to skip to Measure C and spend some time talking a little bit about our Measure C fund, we do have Measure C operating funds as well as Measure C capital funds. Wanting to focus a little bit on the operating side of the Measure C. There were no previous appropriations in this particular fund between July 1st and as of today. We did account for about $400,000 in carry forwards and from fiscal year 23. New requests include 400,000, and those include the $250,000 appropriation for the St. Rose support to continue delivering their vital healthcare services, and $75,000 for continued cleanup efforts throughout the city. And then there is a cost for $86,000 for consultant services to help with public engagement, research, polling, and communication related to the city's potential extension of Measure C. So total change in Measure C over the adoptive about 800,000. Measure C capital, we had previous council appropriations of about $2 million that was related to some additional funding for the Fire Station 6 Training Center to complete that project. We did have budget carry forwards of $4.8 million. And then new requests, we are not proposing any requests for capital Measure C funds, so for a total of $6.8 million. So again, summary of proposed mid-year changes for other funds and CIP. So other funds, so any other fund besides Measure C and the general fund are captured here. Previous appropriations for other funds total $11.8 million. A significant portion of that includes the newly created fund for the Economic Development Corporation. So that appropriation of $8.6 million is in that amount, and also in that amount is $2.6 million for landscape and lighting assessment district budget appropriation. So those are within our special revenue funds. Fiscal year 2023 budget carry forwards account for $16.7 million, and then new requests a total 6.8. A significant portion of that is the cost of transferring from our workers' compensation fund to reimburse the funds that overfunded that particular fund. CIP funds, previous appropriations account for $1.2 million. Carry forward from fiscal year 23 account for 136.1. That may seem like a very large number, but it is accounting for all of our capital improvement projects. And it does allow us to continue to fulfill those obligations for those projects when we carry the funds over into fiscal year 24. And the new mid-year requests account for about $800,000, which include some replacement of doors at our corporation yard to accommodate the new access control readers that we have. The purchase of a freezer for animal control operational needs, fleet management enterprise for some truck replacement and repairs that account for about $200,000, and then fleet management capital, an appropriation of insurance claims that we received from some damaged vehicles, and auctions of 2 fire vehicles in the amount of $51,000. So the total change in CIP expenses presented at mid-year is $138.1 million. So this evening I'm going to go over a little bit about the ARPA expenditure plan. This is not a part of the mid-year asking for changes to ARPA. It's just a review of the projects and kind of giving a status of where we're at. So this is a high-level summary of the budget categories which support several projects within the city. The first category is support public health expenditures, including capitalizing investment in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs. There was a total expenditure budget of 6.9. We have a revised, so we have spent in that category in fiscal year 2022 about 800,000, about 900,000 in fiscal year 2023, with a revised budget in fiscal year 24 5.2. The next category is address economic impacts caused by public health emergency. We had appropriated 15.7 in this category. This supports a lot of projects related to homelessness and housing-related projects, as well as small business loans. So that appropriation was $15.7 million. We have spent over the 2 years about a little over $8 million, remaining $7.5 million. Council did choose to appropriate 14.5 million to the general fund to account for lost revenue that the city experienced during the pandemic. Both of those appropriations have occurred. They occurred in fiscal year 22 and 23. And then invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure projects supporting that category was 1.2 million. We have spent a little, about 400,000 over the 2 fiscal years with a revised budget of 835,000. So fiscal year 24 does include a revised budget of 13.6 million. Of that amount, there is about 8.3 funds unobligated at this time. They are appropriated to a project, but they have not been obligated to a specific contract or a specific purchase at this time, but the budget is available for them to continue to use. I highlight that because there are requirements with the U.S. Treasury that we must obligate all of the ARPA dollars by December 31st, 2024, and spend all of the ARPA dollars by December 31st, 2026. And so wanting to highlight the amount of money that we still have that's unobligated as of today. With that being said, I wanted to highlight a couple of projects, again, that potentially if there are funds available and unobligated as we approach that December 31st, 2024 date, we will be coming back to council probably in fall with projects that could be funds that could be reallocated to support those projects. Some of those projects this evening is we do have the flexibility and capacity to reallocate unobligated funds for the replacement of lost revenue that the city experienced. We do have capacity within our calculation to appropriate additional funds to the general fund for lost revenue during that period of time. There's also a project of $75,000 for homelessness public education campaign, and that is to develop a public education campaign to educate the Hayward community about ongoing homelessness efforts and how the homelessness system of care operates. $1 million for fiscal year 25 funding for South Hayward Parish year-round operations. This would continue funding for extended operation of emergency shelters at South Hayward Parish, which was expanded beyond a winter warming shelter through the city's first ARPA allocation. Calendar year fiscal year 25 safe parking pilot program of $1 million. This would leverage county land use committee convening to identify land for safe parking pilot to serve mid-county residents. There's also additional funding for the navigation center and to expand meals and operational expenses. That's $500,000. Expanding and allocating continued funding for motel vouchers for fiscal year 25, and that's $50,000. Affordable housing development, $5 million. That would be applying available ARPA dollars to the next affordable housing notice of funding availability, also known as NOFA, to fund affordable housing development loans, and to ensure funds are extended prior to the deadlines. Funds could be used to shovel-ready projects, pre-development costs and acquisition costs as well. So that is an opportunity as well. Also extending and expanding the Together for Hayward e-gift card program that the city also applied ARPA dollars to, so we could continue to fund that program with additional ARPA dollars if we would like. So this was really just more of a quick update of where we are with ARPA dollars. We do include a budget and brief in the fiscal year budget each year, and we will continue to do so. So that will also be included in the proposed budget document, which you'll receive in about a month and a half. And so these projects will also be highlighted again, and I would suspect that we would continue to bring forth some of these projects in the fall for consideration if there are still funds available.
Thank you. So I'd like to start off with, were you going to go right ahead? I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I just wanted to, before we go into comments from the public, I just wanted to note that we did receive an email today from a member of the Hayward community and wanting to address some of those comments. I will address some of the budget-related comments. There's a comment about animal control, so we have our wonderful chief here who will be able to expand on that a little bit for me. But wanting to just highlight some of the questions and address those now. So the first was related to the $8,000 in taxpayer funds to cover the mayor's dinner. We did cover that during that details on the media request, but again, it is a shared cost, and the city, of the 15 cities in Alameda County, we do share that event and that expense. This is a one-time expense, as we swapped with Oakland and hosted 2 events this year. The other was, how does one justify the proposed expense of $75,000 to educate Hayward residents on unhoused community, and addressed those efforts. Again, that's not necessarily being requested this evening. It is a project that could be considered by council at a future date when we further discuss ARPA dollars. The Russell City Reparative Justice Project has been allotted at least $170,000 from the general fund. Has the current status been included within this budget review? It is not, because we are not requesting additional funding to support that effort as of now. We do continue to do work on that. If you have specific questions related to the process of that, our Assistant City Manager Youngblood has been very integral in that process and can answer those questions for you. Do you want me, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was a response to the question about the status of that work. I wanted to let anyone know, City Council and any member of the community, that there will be a work session that is going to be held on March the 26th between the council and the Russell City Reparative Justice Steering Committee, so that we can hear from that committee their recommendations to council, and council can consider those recommendations and provide staff with direction around next steps.
And then there was a few more questions that came through. One was again about the $86,000, specifically related to whether or not the work that is put into the polling and the public input, if that would be included in the ballot language. When the work is complete, there will be a work session with council, and they will have an opportunity to really work on the language, on what language they want to include in the ballot, and so that will be coming forth in the next couple of months. So yes, that information will be utilized as council chooses to develop that ballot language. There was another question specifically around the divestment of funds that was part of the investment policy review. We continue to work on with our consultant to transfer those funds to another investment. We have not been able to do so quite yet. As I mentioned during that meeting, we are establishing a CAMP account, and part of that is establishing a bank and transferring those funds from our investment account to the new investment account. And so we should be doing that within the next week or so, and we'll be able to divest in those 4 specific companies. And we will continue to monitor the impact that it has, and we'll bring it back to the Budget and Finance Committee, as well as to this council. And then the last question was around animal control shelter and wanting to understand if there are additional funding available to continue to support the great effort and that the Animal Control Center provides, as well as the animal shelter. So I don't know if Chief Matthews wants to make a comment.
Good evening. I'll just make a brief comment. We did see about a 3.7% reduction in the operating budget for the shelter in the aftermath of COVID, and I think that's probably what's being referenced in the comments. We do, however, offset that with grant funding, as you know, and then also we're fortunate to have a community that really donates quite robustly to the shelter, so we offset with those funds. I also have our administrator, Jenny Comstock, who's here online, so if any other questions about the shelter come up, we're happy to answer those. Thank you. And those were all the questions that we did receive from the community.
So at this point, I will read my last slide, which is the recommendation for council, which is to review the fiscal year 24 mid-year budget. 2, adopt a resolution approving amendments to the previously adopted City of Hayward fiscal year 2024 operating budget, not 23, my apologies. And then adopt a resolution providing amendments to the previously adopted City of Hayward fiscal year 24 capital improvement program budget.
Thank you. And I just wanted to, an editorial comment regarding the mayor's conference. The account for the mayor's conference is all the funds are put into a pot, and then when cities host a mayor's conference meeting at their city, they pay for dinner and then they're reimbursed. So I forget what the percentage is that they get reimbursed, but it's almost 100%. But so it's a pot that keeps growing, or it doesn't keep growing, but it just keeps getting spent down, and then it's raised back up. So just to for a point of clarification. Okay. I'm going to go to questions up here first, and our first person is Councilmember Zermeño.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, just quick question, 3 quick questions. 1, loan expenditures, that is money that is going out, but it's coming back in, so it's not a loss per se.
Correct. So it is, we will record, from an accounting perspective, we will record a loan receivable.
Right.
And so, correct, it will record as a expenditure of 8.6. It is a loan. It will be repaid in the same amount.
That also with the $1 million for the employees.
Correct.
So that's an important both are important programs. I just want to make sure that folks out there know that it is money that comes back to us. Second question, transfer outs. I'm looking at transfer outs, page 2. Can any of those be included in the enterprise funds? And for example, airport with the fuel, or the UUT and the very last one, because it deals with the fire station 6, so that they don't come out of our general fund.
Understood. So I will say that the fleet management, that is already allocated, and there are the water fund, the sewer fund, they are all paying a portion of the cost. The total cost on that particular line item is closer to $600,000, and the general funds portion is $436,000. So this is just our allocated portion. And then same with the general liability fund. This is just this general funds portion of the total cost of the increase in general liability insurance. And same with facilities, because the facilities is a general fund operated facility. It is an allocation from the general fund.
So the last one that deals with the fire station is not something that can come out of the Measure C funding as opposed to our general fund?
It could come out of Measure C. It's not something we've typically done as far as allocating to the facility management fund.
I would also just say,
look at the numbers and make sure that they're less.
Measure C, it does have a sunset date on it, so I think we've been really cautious to allocate ongoing operating costs to Measure C. So I would just caution the council to be thoughtful about allocating sort of ongoing operating costs or expenses for, say, facilities management or things like that. I think we just need to be really careful about that until we understand kind of the long-term future of Measure C funds.
I had assumed that anything having to do with our training center, which was paid by Measure C, would also include anything else having to do with.
If it's a one-time capital cost, yes. If it's an ongoing operating cost, no.
Okay. All right. Okay, got it. And then, of course, we did hear from our chief. There was a decrease in animal shelter funding, but that was fixed with some grant money, and there are $8,000 in here that was already approved.
Correct.
Can we increase it in any way?
I would just lots of city departments had their budgets reduced during COVID. So I think if the council wants to consider that along with other budget requests that come forward, I would recommend you do that as part of the annual budget process. At this, I did have a chance to talk with the chief. At this point, the animal shelter is able to cover its expenses. This additional cost for the freezer was the ask at mid-year. But I think during the annual budget process, each department has the opportunity to put forward additional needs, and so if there is that additional need, we can do that. I will just also note that as we're considering a potential extension of the half-cent sales tax Measure C, one of the elements of that is the potential construction of a new animal shelter and facility, which would help address some of those sort of ongoing facility issues that are happening there.
Yeah. As you know, we have been receiving some emails about increasing the funds for that. So thank you much. Very good report.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the update on the budget. I wanted to ask about the $500,000 for the consulting, the inspection fees and plan check for services. Is that sort of a post-COVID can you explain what that one is?
That we tend to see an increase at mid-year. We keep it relatively flat as part of the adopted budget. But as we work through the process and through the fiscal year, as developments come online and they come back and we have to do plan check services and to do inspection services. So it's really dependent on when development is actually continuing to move forward. So they do monitor their use of their consultant services. And so at mid-year, they will bring a mid-year request if they need to at that time. It's also it's actually offset by revenue that was previously collected. So I wanted to highlight that piece as well. So for example, we might receive the revenue 2 years ago, but now the project is coming in and we're trying to plan check for that project. But the revenue to support those efforts and those consultant services was already collected previously.
Okay, so I mean, it was somehow accounted for previously. Okay, the other thing I'm just curious about, the security services for the fire training center, what is that?
It's not related to the fire training center, it's just that particular fund. It's increased security services at a number of our city facilities, including City Hall and both libraries.
Okay, sorry, I was conflating the two. Okay, and then on the ARPA fund, so right now we have $5 million that's not obligated, is that right?
We have about 8.3.
Okay.
It is, like I said, those funds are allocated, appropriated to projects that were approved as part of the ARPA expenditure plan, but obligated meaning they're not under contract. We don't have a contract. We don't have a purchase order tied to those funds obligating them.
Okay.
And so that's the differential. And so making sure that we can fulfill that so we don't have to return any of the funds.
Okay, and then if those aren't used, then you're going to come back to us with that list of options that you were talking about.
I would suspect it's going to be in the fall. Sorry, did you want to? I was going to say in the fall, I would suspect we would come back with an update on where we are. We meet quarterly with staff to monitor those and to understand where staff is maybe having hiccups or having hurdles with specific projects and whether or not it's feasible to continue that work or to look to reallocate to another project.
Okay.
And that list was just sort of a preliminary list that we put together and discussed with Budget and Finance Committee, but I think when staff comes back, there could be an expanded list or a different list based on current needs at that time.
Okay. Okay, and then the last question I had was around the attachment. It was the attachment 3A on the CIP. And I was just wondering on the, page 2 of that, the CIP expenditure adjustments, that the adopted budget was $120 million, is that right? And then the adjustments are $144 million, is that, I'm just, it's sort of a shocking number, so I'm just wondering am I not looking at this right?
I'm sorry, which page?
It was page 2 of the, it's the CIP expenditure adjustments.
And I'm sorry, what was your question?
So the adopted budget for 2023 was $120 million, and then there was an amendments of $144 million. So we're more than doubling what that was.
Correct, and a lot of that has to do with carry forwards.
Okay.
And not new requests.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we're just adjusting
purchase orders that were encumbered in a prior fiscal year that are carrying forward. Like we did a street project last year. The contract is still encumbered. so we have to
Okay.
roll the funds forward.
Okay, good, thank you, because when I looked at that number, doubling. Okay, and then the last question I just had was about the downtown special events. So this is an additional expense. Are these new events that we didn't do previously? Did we not, we didn't budget for it, obviously?
We had not budgeted for it. There were some funds that were able to use in fiscal year 23 to cover those costs. The costs were not available in fiscal year 24, but the events continue. It's related to staff support on those projects, specifically in our maintenance services division.
Oh, okay, you mean it's related to staff time, the 40,000, okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this great presentation. It was very informative. Just a couple of quick questions. So I get the reserve that we're using is going to be about 3.2 million roughly. But the question that I had is that dip into the reserve, I think accounts for the operating expenses that we see here that went up. But the question that I have is this 9.6 million, the 8.6 and then where is that coming from today? I get it's going to come back to us later. But where is that money coming from? Because I would have expected to see that come out of the reserve.
It does come out of the reserves. We were just trying to highlight it as kind of separate from ongoing operational expenses. That's why on the bottom it says the net ending balance will be 29.9 million.
I see. Got it.
Would you like me to go back to that slide?
Nope, I have it right in front of me now, and then it's going to get us to the 14% of
Correct.
reserve. That makes
Correct.
sense. I just didn't connect that
Yeah.
earlier, but that's useful.
We just wanted to call them out separately because there's the
Yes.
3.2 negative number is kind of the ongoing operating picture. And because those loans theoretically, and we're budgeting that they'll get paid back, we wanted to just call it out separately so you could see the two different scenarios with those different funding.
Excellent, and that's very useful, and I appreciate kind of the forecast of the payment returns too, because that, I think, solves a little bit of the consternation that I think a few members of the community had in relationship to this expense. The next question I have is just related to the additional expenses. So when we look at, for an example, fuel cost, of almost $500,000, is that just because fuel costs have gone up, or are we using more fuel? I mean, why weren't we able to project this out earlier?
So we typically keep it pretty static. Fuel rates were kind of all over the place for a while, and so we wanted to keep it very stable and then continue to monitor the usage and the cost, right? So the cost last year, it might have been close to $6 a gallon, and now we're much lower. And so wanting to have more data in actual. So we kept a flat budget for maintenance services, asked maintenance services to continue to monitor their fuel budget. It is an ask as we do continue to see increases in our fuel services, and so they bring it back at mid-year to really be as accurate as possible rather than over budget. And so that's why that's kind of been the strategy as far as the fuel cost is concerned.
Would that be the same analogy for energy costs for Fire Station 6?
Yes, and so Fire Station 6, we did not include full PG&E costs, and so this is a one-time. We do have solar on that facility. It's being finalized. I'm being told that it should be complete within the next couple of months, and that PG&E bill will go significantly down. And so this is a one-time cost as they continue to bring that solar panels up to operations.
Great. Thank you for that response. And my last question is, as it relates to the employee home loan pilot program, which I'm really excited to see us moving forward with, this $1 million, how many employees might that benefit?
It's up to 10. It's up to, I should say, it's up to a loan of $150,000. So however many we can get with that $1 million, someone may not require a full 150, and so it'll just be determined on the actual request.
All right. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all your hard work on this. I wanted to know a little bit more about the PG&E costs related to the fire station, and we are doing solar. Are we collecting any of that power, or is it going back to PG&E? Are we getting a reimbursement?
I don't have the specific details as the operations of it. I don't know if,
I think we do get bill credits, but we can get follow-up information.
Yeah, we can
report back
provide
to
some
the
more
council.
detail.
I know the wastewater treatment facility, they're going to have a microgrid, so it will collect the power, but this will actually impact the budget in a positive way,
Yeah.
so it would be great to
We can get
to
that
know how
information for you.
much, that would happen for. Okay. And then I wanted to know about the just development projects in general. As we know, sales tax helps with our revenue, and wanted to know what we can do to get some of our new projects online faster, including our restaurants, shopping centers, all that, and how soon will we see the revenue come from those development projects?
I think it's a complicated answer. I will say that we are constantly internally as a staff looking at ways to improve processes in our development review process, streamline, work more efficiently together. The InterGov online permitting system, I think, has helped out a lot because that has facilitated a lot more online permit review and just some faster, hopefully some faster turnaround times. You know, we consistently will be looking for ways to move those projects further along. I will say, you know, we consistently struggle with some of our partner agencies, namely PG&E, which is an agency we don't control. Their backlog in terms of processing applications is enormous. So if you ever have an opportunity to talk to our local PG&E representatives about the importance of certain development projects, it's always appreciated, but they get that pressure from everyone, so they tend to ignore all of us and do it at their own time and their own pace. So that continues to be a challenge for us.
Yep, City Manager McAdoo, that is why I asked the question, so we can have that in record and for the public to know that we need our utility agencies to assist us in order to get your grocery stores, your restaurants, your stores, anything that you would like to shop at, eat at, please assist us in getting our local agencies who provide power to get our projects online so we can increase our sales tax for our budget.
And I would just also encourage, you know, the California Public Utilities Commission is the oversight body for PG&E. So if anyone would like to submit comments to the PUC, I'm sure they would love to get emails from our residents encouraging PG&E to either staff up or more quickly process development applications. It's also been a challenge for our affordable housing projects. And so in terms of addressing the housing crisis, that's also a challenge.
Great, thank you. And then just wanted to see how can we look at the 575 number and what we can do to increase that number to get that loan repaid faster.
Sure, and that is an estimate at this time. I have been working with Assistant City Manager Clausen and members of the City Attorney's Office to really look at what the potential income is for that property and expenses to really have a clear understanding of what that payback could look like that could be supported by the income that is being received. So that number may change, and so we can absolutely continue to look to increase that to get it paid back sooner. Those are all part of the conversations that we're having.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other questions up here, so what I'll do is I'll go to public comment, and I believe we are honored tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The supervisor herself is in the building. Alameda County Supervisor of District 2, Elisa Marquez.
To do this. My goodness, I'm a rookie here. Well, you know, green is intuitive go, but I have to remember that it's the opposite. So good evening, everyone. Elisa Marquez, Alameda County Board of Supervisors, District 2. Thank you so much for giving me the honor to be here tonight in front of all of you. I just want to read into the record a letter that my office and that I sent in yesterday. It's dated March 11th, and it's addressed to Mayor Salinas and council members. And it states, I am writing to express my strong strong, and excuse my voice, I'm getting over a really bad cold, hence why I have the mask on. But I'm ready to express my strong support for fiscal year 2024 proposed mid-year amendment to appropriate $250,000 in Measure C funds to St. Rose Hospital to support the continued delivery of vital healthcare services while hospital leadership works on long-term sustainable financial plan. I applaud Hayward City leadership, including the mayor, Mark Salinas, and Councilmember Ray Bonillo Jr., at remaining steadfastly committed to working with local stakeholders to ensure health care for all within the city and nearby region. Since the City of Hayward Council decided on December 12, 2023, to unanimously support the referral to bring this request forward tonight, this is to ensure that critical community infrastructure, St. Rose Hospital, remains viable for all of our community members. I just want to inform all of you today that the Board of Supervisors did take action, and we had an agenda item to leverage $11.6 million in funding, and we approved that unanimously today. That's not always an easy thing to do with the Board of Supervisors. I just want to tell you that this is an all hands on deck approach. We've secured funding from our state legislator, Senator Aisha Wahab, Assemblymember Liz Ortega. Their office, along with my office, has been instrumental in securing a distress hospital loan. And this is really just to continue to allow the hospital to continue to operate as the Board of Directors of St. Rose Hospital figure out the next steps. We've been closely tracking this in Alameda County. We had an informational item last week. We anticipate having an update within 1 month as to what that partnership will look like for St. Rose Hospital. So I know this is a big decision. I know you're crunching a lot of numbers, but this is a critical healthcare service within Hayward that not only serves all of our Hayward residents, but throughout the region. So I encourage you to join the team. Thank you for getting us this far, but it would be a huge help if you guys could identify that funding and allocate it tonight. That $11.6 million will bring in over $22.7 million if this action is approved tonight. So look forward to hearing the deliberations, and thank you all for the incredible work you do on behalf of the residents of Hayward. It's a true pleasure to watch you guys in action, and there's a true theme tonight of partnership, also seeing the interaction with HARD. So thank you for all the amazing services you're doing on behalf of the residents, and also to all of staff for being here so late, and the community that's still watching at home. So thank you.
I think that deserves a big round of applause. And I should also say, you guys can't see it, but the folks behind the dais can see it. I was at St. Rose on Sunday. That's why I'm wearing a big old boot right here. But anyways, satisfied.
Weren't you born there?
A satisfied customer right here. But so anyways, thank you, Supervisor Marquez. And I'd like to return back up to the dais. And I also, before we get started, I wanted to thank my colleagues that are on the Budget and Finance Committee, Councilmember Bonilla and Councilmember Syrup. We sit on the Budget and Finance Committee together, and truth be told, we got a sneak peek on this presentation last week. So thank you for, it sounded a lot better tonight, I tell you, I have to say. But anyways, wanted to thank you for that. Before I go to any questions or comment, I did want to ask the city manager, I know we have done work with St. Rose. We have contributed to St. Rose. And can you, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but can you remind us sort of what have we spent to date towards St. Rose so far?
I'd have to go back. A lot of it has been our community development block grant federal funding to support capital improvements at St. Rose Hospital. I would say, probably, maybe close to $1 million, maybe more, $2 million 2 million. So I can get those numbers and provide them to the council. I think the $250,000 that was allocated, that is, in terms of operating dollars. And the great news with that funding is because we're partnering with Alameda County, there is matching intergovernmental transfer funds, so that we can basically double that amount in support for St. Rose. So this is the first time since I've been here in 14 years that I think the council has done operating dollars to St. Rose, but we've done a lot of matching or just capital dollars for projects there.
So there has been, point of clarification, so we have committed the 200?
It's part of the action
Yeah,
this
that's what I
evening.
thought.
Once you vote, you will have committed it, yes.
Okay, yeah.
You have not yet.
That's why, okay, good. All right, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so with that said, thank you for that. And again, I just wanted to thank Supervisor Marquez for her leadership on this. And to defer to my colleagues on the budget and finance, and to my fellow St. Rose alumni, do you want to move the item?
I think it would be moving the entire budget amendment, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to. Thank you, Mayor. And I also just want to thank Supervisor Marquez for her support around St. Rose Hospital. It's such a critical lifeline for so many in our community. And what's interesting is you never know when you're going to need or find yourself at St. Rose. My mom recently, over an administrative error, lost her health insurance with Kaiser. It's going to be reinstated next month, but if something were to happen to her, I would be very comfortable taking her to St. Rose, and it would be one of the only hospitals in the region that would take her. So the service that this hospital provides to our most lowest income and our most vulnerable members of the community, and in fact, any of us can find ourselves in a position of needing to utilize that hospital at any given point. So making sure that it's funded is a top priority, I think, not just for me, but for all of my colleagues, and we share this commitment with the Board of Supervisors. So it's certainly an honor to move this forward tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
And I believe Councilmember Syrup will second this.
Happy to.
And go right ahead. And
Thank you. At first, when I saw the supervisor walk in, I thought that she saw our budget projections and came to scold us about our reserves. But I was, very happy to hear what the comment was about. And don't worry, we're taking care of it. Just wanted to thank my colleagues on the Budget and Finance Committee who put forward this referral initially to fund St. Rose. I'm happy to move forward with this item. Most of my questions were answered during Budget and Finance, which is why I was a little bit more quiet tonight. And I think just overall around this budget proposal, just sharing my thoughts on what I think might be the least stressful way to proceed is, we can recommit these dollars, these ARPA dollars, back into our general fund to buy ourselves more time to figure out what to do with them down the line. And I know we are, facing some difficult fiscal projections, so that might be a good way of softening some of that blow as we make our next strategic financial decisions. I really like how many of the programs being suggested are around homelessness and housing. I am curious if there are ways for us to innovate on top of that. So, we talk about a motel voucher program, we talk about a safe parking site. Idea that I brought up during our Budget and Finance is what would it look like to maybe combine those programs together? I recently saw a report through HUSD that we have 532 unhoused youth. And so maybe, on the Education City kind of theme, we try to find a motel voucher program specifically for unhoused students in partnership with HUSD, right? So I just want us to get creative as we come back later in the fall around really specific targeted programs for ways we can spend those ARPA dollars. And I'm really interested in committing a portion of those ARPA dollars towards those programs. But I'd rather us design the right program first, not rush it and rush to allocate these dollars if we can just restore our general fund in the meantime. So those are some of my initial strategic thoughts. It's all right if not everybody agrees with me, but I just wanted to put it on the table in the spirit of Education City. So with that, I'm happy to second it, and I'll hand it back to you, Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Always a pleasure to see our supervisor here. Thank you for your hard work. And I want to commend my colleagues, Councilmember Bonilla and Mayor Salinas, on pushing forward St. Rose. I am interested in hearing more about how we can continue to support this important a vital resource in our community. Look forward to seeing long-term plans and sustainability plans for this resource. But I am very excited to see that this is going to move forward. Also wanted to put in a plug for the e-card program. We are fortunate to have a 2.8% vacancy rate in our downtown. The national average is 5.3. That is phenomenal. That is something that is really done by our community, by small business. Hayward is, you know, we have a lot of smaller businesses. We don't have a ton of corporations and big box stores. We have a few. Obviously, we have Costco, we have Target, but we're seeing these companies leave these communities, but what's staying is a small business, and we need to support them. And I think the e-card program has been extremely successful over the years, especially for our smaller businesses that are pushing retail. They are seeing people come from all over the region to use these gift cards in our community. So I will hope that we put in a little of money on the side for the e-card program. So thank you.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to support the motion to move this forward, and you know, more than happy to support the allocation to St. Rose. Thank you, Supervisor Marquez, for being here to speak on behalf of that, and thanks for the work on that, both Councilmember Bonilla and the mayor, because obviously St. Rose is such a vital resource for our city, so glad to support that. I'm looking forward to the ARPA allocation funds conversation. I heard some of the suggestions, and you know, it'd be great to have that conversation about how we can make the most impact and not sort of just one-time allocation. So I'll be looking forward to that. I have in the past expressed my reservations about the $8.6 million for the theater, but we've had that discussion, and I'm going to remain optimistic about that, and I really and will remain positive that this will be a positive project for the city. So I'm glad to support the project, support the budget the way it is tonight, and moving forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Zermenio.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Supervisor Marquez, for supporting our hospital. Very, very important. As my colleagues have stated, it is an excellent hospital for the whole community. They did a very good job with my wife and also with my Aunt Amparo. And I'm happy to report that I am a member of the St. Rose Foundation, and we have a meeting this Thursday in order, and we work, our mayor is also has been or is part of it. So we do work on making sure that we raise enough funds to keep the hospital in a healthy position, as healthiest as possible. So thank you all for this.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Gonzalez, I'm always impressed with the great job you do of not only presenting us with our financial state, but also explaining it. It's clear that you understand it well, and it makes it easy to follow along when you're explaining to us what's going on with city finances. So I commend you for that great report. Supervisor Marquez, your support of St. Rose is spot on and very much appreciated. St. Rose is a vital link to people in our community who will not get those services if St. Rose is not supported. And we owe it to all of our community members to continue to support St. Rose, not just because the mayor was born there, but because it serves communities that will otherwise have to go without. I think in addition to that, you know, I've taken my kids to St. Rose. When they were little, they had some health emergencies, and I just got to tell you, the level of care that is provided there, it is not what some people might think of as low income. It's top tier. They're great practitioners of medicine, and that hospital is open to everybody. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, and I just want to just echo the comments about St. Rose. St. Rose is, you know, no doubt it is an important safety net hospital in Hayward, if not in the East Bay, and St. Rose is just more than a hospital. It really is a Hayward institution, and I think it may not be as big and as illustrious as the new hospital up 880 freeway or even over off of Maori. But you know, it's a place where it has a mission that you don't see at a lot of hospitals. And they will serve everybody, regardless of their ability to pay, period. That's the mission. And, you know, when my parents came to Hayward, you know, in the 50s and started their family, I can only imagine the position my parents were in to pay for starting a family. I can only imagine what their financial situation was. But one thing is true, is that it was St. Rose Hospital's mission that enabled my parents to grow their family. And so, you know, I will always be a strong defender of St. Rose, and you know, I know we sort of joke about it and up here a lot, and I'm so proud of, you know, claiming St. Rose everywhere I go. But it really is a significant institution that I think we really, as a community, we really need to think about supporting it. But really, and I have to agree with Councilmember Andrews, we really need to think about long and deep about how we keep that hospital sustainable and ongoing. I do know St. Rose is thinking about it. They've been thinking about it for a long time, and I know that, you know, in the short future there is some plans that will be presented, but at least right now in this moment in history we can keep it going, and but I can assure you that more is yet to come in the future for St. Rose. So I just wanted to thank all my colleagues for supporting this. Councilmember Bonilla, thank you for joining me on that referral. And with that said, Madam City Clerk, can you take the roll?
I'd be happy to do that, Mayor, but I think we have the iPads, so do we want to give it a try?
Madam City Clerk, we will take the vote on the iPads.
Okay.
Because the iPads is where we vote.
There you go. And I'm happy to help if anyone needs to.
I don't have a vote button.
Okay. Would you like to say how you want to
Hold
vote?
on, we haven't seen it. It's not up yet. It hasn't come up yet. It's coming.
It hasn't? Okay, so maybe it's not working. So I'll go ahead and just do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Roach.
Yes.
Councilmember Syrup.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño. Mayor Salinas.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it passes unanimously. Congratulations. And I think it's worth a hand clap. Okay. Next item is our council reports and announcements. And are there any council reports and announcements? Councilmember Syrup.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted the public to know that I believe it is this Friday, March 15th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the John Oleg Galleria downstairs in the lobby. There will be an exhibition called Art is Education, which is a collaboration between the Hayward Arts Council, the City of Hayward, and Hayward Unified. So I just wanted to invite everyone here and any members of the public that are watching or will watch to come check out some of the artwork that our city is making and encourage our young artists to keep creating. Thank you.
Councilmember Julie Roach, and I know what you're going to talk about.
I just have to give one more plug to the Bay Philharmonic this weekend for the St. Patrick's Day Celtic celebration. I believe there's still tickets available. It'll be an awesome afternoon celebrating Celtic music and dancing. There will be refreshments served. So I encourage everybody to check out tickets. And I think there's even a raffle. Every ticket purchase goes into a raffle for a trip to Dublin.
What?
So, yeah, I just saw that in the
Wait, hold on a second.
in the Tri-Valley Voice.
Dublin, California,
Dublin,
or
Ireland.
Dublin, Idaho,
Ireland. It was in
or
the
Dublin,
I saw it in the Tri-City Voice today.
I know. Did I
so
say Idaho?
maybe that changes things up. Buy your tickets. Thank you.
All right. Dublin, Ireland. Great. Any other, if there are no further questions, meeting is adjourned.
Here, look, Angela, thank you for letting me use that.